All right, so here we go. We got the start of the men's second varsity 8 fourth level final. So we have in lane 1, Florida Institute of Technology. In lane 2, Drexel University. Oregon State in the third lane out from the shore. St. Joe's in lane 4, Santa Clara in 5, and UC San Diego out in lane 6. Tight pack here off the start. Doesn't look like anyone's really moved ahead. So all the bow balls are within a few feet of each other right now. Good starts, though, from all crews with, if anyone, just Santa Clara trailing a little bit here. So right now it looks like lane 1, FIT, getting the lead over Drexel and Oregon State, with St. Joe's and UC San Diego challenging them for the lead. But those 3 crews on the 3 inside lanes appear to be the leaders in the first 250 meters or so. So good, solid strokes being thrown down by all of these crews. A good clean start here and a great view from our drone. So, and it appears that Drexel is just a little bit inching out on the crews from FIT and Oregon State. Let's head out to the launch.
We're approaching 500 meters in the 4th level, second varsity 8. And it's been pretty much to form everybody in about a half a deck apart in lane order. It's FIT, but they are now being closed in on by Drexel. Drexel has drawn level with FIT. They've got a deck on Oregon State, who has a deck on St. Joseph's. St. Joseph's with a deck on UC San Diego, and then a deck seat back from there to Santa Clara. So Drexel has just put itself in front by a seat over Florida Tech. Drexel's at 37. Oregon State coming up to challenge in lane 3. They're also at 37. It's about 3 feet for Drexel over FIT. FIT about 5 feet over Oregon State. Then it's a half a length back to St. Joseph's. St. Joseph's about level with Santa Clara. And then another couple of seats back, UC San Diego. Florida Tech drawing back level with Drexel. They put in a little burst here at 750, and they're within a foot or so of Drexel. Drexel fighting gamely to hold them off. That has placed both of those crews about a third of a length ahead of Oregon State, who now lead St. Joseph's by 3/4 of a length. St. Joseph's just about level with Santa Clara, and again, another seat or 2 back to UC San Diego. Drexel noses through the 1,000, just ahead of FIT. They've got 1 seat on the Panthers from Florida, and they've got a half a length on Oregon State. Oregon State has about just under a length over a really nice battle here for 4th. St. Joseph's just barely ahead of Santa Clara, who's still just barely ahead of UC San Diego. Drexel begins to extend its lead. Drexel now has about a third of a length on Florida Tech. It's Oregon State, 3 seats behind FIT. St. Joseph's still overlapping barely on Oregon State, and Santa Clara maybe a seat behind them and a seat and a half ahead of UC San Diego. So the fight up at the front is Drexel now in the lead, but that's about a 1/4 of a length, maybe a third of a length over FIT. FIT still with a 1/4 of a length on Oregon State, and now it's exactly 1 length from Oregon State back to St. Joseph's. St. Joseph's with about a 1/4 length now. Santa Clara, and Santa Clara a couple of seats on UC San Diego. Approaching 500 meters. Drexel still at 36. They haven't gone anywhere yet, but they've moved out to a half a length over FIT, who in turn has nearly half a length now over Oregon State.
Okay, so it's Drexel out there in the lead here. Drexel taking the lead over Florida Tech in lane 1 and Oregon State in lane number 3. So 3 crews battling in those top 3 positions, 3 other crews in the 4th, 5th, and 6th positions in another good tight race. So Drexel with the lead. Drexel getting ready to lift the rate for the sprint here as they get into the red buoys for the final 250 meters. It is Drexel over FIT, over Oregon State University in lane 3. So Drexel moving the boat well, calm and collected in the lead here, watching Florida Tech ready to respond here. FIT in lane 1, really starting to move now. You can see a nice strong catch from the crew from FIT, a good rhythm being established by the Panthers. And Oregon State in the 3rd position has a little work to do to catch and move into that 2nd spot, but it's Oregon State in the 3rd position, clearly ahead of St. Joe's, Santa Clara, and UC San Diego. But Drexel is being really pressed now by the crew from FIT. So FIT really surging to the line here. Drexel's bow is just ahead, and it looks like, wow, we are very close, almost too close to call. I'm not going to make a call on that one, but Drexel and FIT very close. Oregon State in that 3rd position. And St. Joe's, UC San Diego, very tight for 4th place, with Santa Clara in the 6th place position. So that was the 4th level final of the men's 2nd varsity 8. Very good racing from all those crews. It looks like a great sprint from Florida Tech to try to catch Drexel. We'll get you those unofficial results here in just a second. Oregon State clearly in the 3rd place position on a very tight race between St. Joseph's and UC San Diego for 4th. As soon as we get the results, we will let you know where things stand. So we are looking now at the next race coming up will be the 3rd level final for the men's 2nd varsity 8s. Wisconsin in lane 1, Stanford in 2, Columbia in 3, Navy in 4, Syracuse in 5, and Hobart in lane 6. That's the 10-20 race. Wisconsin in lane 1 for the 2nd varsity 3rd level final. So a good sprint coming from FIT, who Drexel had over a half a length lead on them going into that final 500 meters, and they really turned up the rate and moved and tried to catch Drexel in those final few strokes. As soon as we can, we'll let you know the unofficial results. Coming up after the 3rd level final of the 2nd varsity, we'll have the petite finals for the women's lightweight 8 and the men's lightweight 8. Those will both be 2-boat races, and then we will be beginning at 10:50 into the petite final and grand finals of the men's 3rd varsity 8 race. 10:50 will be the petite final, 11 a.m. for the 3rd varsity 8 grand final. And we have the 4th level final results here for the 2nd varsity. Drexel was your winner of that 4th level final in 5:56.9. 5:56.934. And FIT in 5:56.967. So incredible tight race for that 1st place finish. Oregon State University in 6:02.3 was 3rd. St. Joe's in 6:06.2. UC San Diego 6:06.7. And Santa Clara in 6:07.9. Great racing by all crews in that 4th level final. We'll be heading out shortly to the drone view of the 3rd freshman 8. The 2nd varsity 8. 3rd level final, I should say. All right, so we have our drone in the air, headed up to the starting line. Beautiful Lake Natoma, just outside of Sacramento. Wonderful conditions here, a slight bit more breeze. Actually, it looks to have calmed down here near the finish line. You can see just a little ripple across the water from the drone's view near the start, but the flags are not getting pushed very hard by the wind. The wind, if anything, is moving slightly from the beach out towards lane 6, kind of cross headwind, if anything, across the race course here. And we have all crews in, and we have a start to the third level final of the men's second varsity 8. Going through the lanes, Wisconsin, Stanford, Columbia, Navy, Syracuse, and Hobart in the lower part of your screen. It looks like lane number 2, Stanford getting out quick with Wisconsin, and Columbia and Navy right with them as well. So 4 boats taking the lead early on here. Stanford, Wisconsin, Columbia, and Navy. Those 4 crews very close behind is Syracuse. Hobart just falling off the pace in the first 10, 15 strokes. But overlap of all the crews, if anything, Hobart is only down by about a half a length here in the beginning of the race. So Wisconsin getting their bow out early. Wisconsin over Stanford, Columbia, Navy, and Syracuse right now. So the Badgers in lane 1 with the red blades. You can see a nice quick start, aggressiveness off that start here. So the Badgers second varsity trying to really gun for it early on here. A lot of power coming from the crew from Wisconsin. It looks like Syracuse and Stanford are running in the second and third positions here. Very tight with Columbia and Navy in the pack as well. But Wisconsin starting to really inch away from Stanford, who has the lead over Syracuse, Columbia, and Navy. So the Badgers with a great start and a clear lead going across the 500-meter mark. Let's go ahead and head out to Fred and Bob in the launch.
Third level final. At the 500-meter mark, it's Wisconsin out front. Rowing at 37 strokes a minute, followed closely by Stanford, also 37. Then it's over to Syracuse in their orange tops in third position at 39, a little bit higher. Excuse me. And then it would be probably over to Columbia in lane 3, a couple seats up on Navy, and Navy and Hobart very close to one another for that 5-6 spot. But Wisconsin on the far side, lane 1, has 5 seats over Stanford, but Syracuse keeps pecking away at the Stanford second spot. So the camera will probably shoot across the bow of Syracuse to Stanford to Wisconsin's stern. Top 3 at all at 37 strokes a minute as the Badgers continue to march out to nearly a length lead. I give the Orangemen now the second spot over Stanford. Just a whisker, but the momentum shift there for Syracuse has them a seat up over Stanford. Then it's Columbia and Navy fighting for that 4 or 5 spot, and Hobart has fallen back to 6th. Wow, Syracuse has really come up and is cutting into Wisconsin's lead. So credit to Syracuse in lane 5, are marching up toward the middle of the Wisconsin boat. But I think the coxswain, there's a wily coxswain over there from Wisconsin, and he took a look and called for 10, and they pushed it out again. He noticed Syracuse, and that's not often the case when you get crews that far apart on the course. The coxswain really on his job there, noticed that Syracuse was coming. Stanford still holds third, but Navy is trying to get, Navy's coming up to challenge Stanford for that third spot, and Columbia's fallen off just a little bit. 500 meters to go. Syracuse, watch out for Syracuse here on the outside as they continue to try and cut into the Wisconsin lead. So lanes 1 and 5, keep your eyes open as Navy marches forward as well.
And it looks like a very good race coming from the Badgers. The Badgers clearly in the lead, Syracuse with a very nice effort coming second right now as they get into this final 500 meters of the race. Stanford, Columbia, and Navy clearly packed together for that third position, but Wisconsin is your leader, so you can see Wisconsin coming down the shoreline. Wisconsin in lane one, really right now into the last 500, getting ready to make their move, shift up, control the race, watching, keeping an eye on Syracuse out there in lane five. So Syracuse with a very strong effort from an outside lane. We haven't seen a lot of the outside lanes really closing too quick, but Syracuse doing a very nice job through that middle 1,000 today. Syracuse ahead of Navy. It looks like Navy's putting in a charge with Stanford and Columbia just close behind them. Wisconsin with your lead right now. The Naval Academy really pressing Syracuse for that second spot. Stanford ahead of Columbia here for that fourth position. Stanford and Columbia both lifting the rate high. Wisconsin holding that lead, and it's the Badgers coming to the line. And the Badgers are across first. Wow, too close to call for Navy and Syracuse. And Columbia just inching ahead of Stanford at the line. Hobart rounding out that field in sixth place position. So tight finishes there in the third final for the men's second varsity 8. A great race by Wisconsin leading all the way down the race course. A good, strong start from the Badgers. That's what they were looking for today from that crew. And really strong racing from Syracuse and the Naval Academy. We'll get back with the race results of that one as soon as we can. And Columbia just coming through to take Stanford at the line. Coming up next, we'll be moving into some women's lightweight 8 petite final. MIT and Tulsa are the two crews for that race, coming up at 10:30. And the third level final, the unofficial results. The third level final of the men's second varsity. Wisconsin was your winner in 5:51.1. Navy was second place. Navy 5:52.268, and Syracuse in third, 5:52.293. Very tight race there. Columbia in fourth, 5:56.445, and Stanford 5:56.566. Hobart in the sixth place position in 6:03.1. So great racing there from these second varsities, especially a wonderful race from Wisconsin, and a great sprint coming from the Naval Academy and Columbia. So we will be moving up to the start line shortly for two-boat petite finals of the women's lightweight varsity 8 and the men's lightweight.
And up at the line for the women's varsity lightweight 8 petite final. This is a two-boat final with MIT in lane 1 and Tulsa in lane 6. MIT came in to the weekend seated 7th and Tulsa seated 6th. We should see a great race between these two crews. And it looks like the crews are gaining their points up at the start. A little bit of a wind this morning, but certainly good conditions overall. So this is the 10:30 a.m. race, the women's varsity lightweight 8 petite final. And the crew's now gaining their points. And these crews are off a 2-boat race. MIT versus Tulsa, lanes 1 and 2, and it's a clean start from both of these crews. Pretty similar speeds here out of the gate and in their first 20 to 30 strokes. I'd say fast start from both crews, maybe Tulsa a little bit higher. And it looks like these two crews are pretty even now as they start to lengthen into their base cadence. Advantage to Tulsa by about 1 to 2 seats. Tulsa pressing their bow ball out a little bit further ahead of MIT in the first 300. MIT answering them. MIT, I'd say, up about 1 seat now on Tulsa, which means they've taken a couple seats back. Again, from the 7th and 6th seed, we should see some really nice racing in this petite final. Advantage to MIT over in lane 1. I'd say it's MIT now by 2 seats, approaching the 500 down. MIT on the move in between a 2 to 3 seat advantage lead. Crews now approaching the 500-meter mark down, and it is MIT, the engineers, coming in to 500-meter mark. Looks like they'll be first to cross the line over to the launch on the water.
MIT now leading Tulsa by a third of a length as they cross 500 meters in the women's lightweight 8 petite final. MIT extends to about a half a length, rowing 37.5. They've really poured it on in the last 20 strokes, and they're moving nicely now. They've already gone from a third of a length up to coxswain on bow ball in about 200 meters. So MIT now 1 length in front of Tulsa, maybe a hair of overlap there, 700 meters into the race. 37.5 for MIT and 35.5 for Tulsa, as that is now a full-length lead, maybe a touch of open water for the engineers. MIT cranking along, it's still rowing pretty high, and now it's a few feet of open water for the engineers over the Golden Hurricane. And now we're at 900 meters, heading toward that halfway point. It's about a third of a length of open for MIT. Right now, it looks like Tulsa's managed to stabilize as we cross the 1,000. MIT is no longer marching away with every stroke. It's Tulsa fighting back. They're managing to hold that margin to about a third of a length of open water. MIT certainly hasn't eased off. They're still at 37. Tulsa's gone up just a tad. They're probably 36, 36 and a half now. And they may have made up a few feet there of that open water. I'd call that a quarter length of open right now. It's about 800 meters to go in the race. Tulsa is still 35.5, 36. They're rowing a beat or two lower than MIT. 700 meters to go. MIT's been 37, 37.5, just about every step of the way. And with that third of a length of open water, with about 650 meters to go. So we're approaching 500 meters. MIT with a solid lead, Now they may be beginning to ease away again. So a solid lead for MIT at 1500 over Tulsa. That's now getting close to 2 lengths as we turn you over to the finish line tent.
And moving now into the last 500 meters of the women's varsity lightweight 8 petite final, 2-boat final with MIT and Tulsa. We saw a quick start off the line from Tulsa, but MIT really getting to work about 400 meters in, and they haven't looked back here, looking to solidify their first place position for this petite final, and it's looking to be by open water. And we see the MIT coxswain looking over her shoulder. MIT now looking to open up their lead as they approach the 250 to go. And MIT coming off of a bronze medal in the grand final at the Dadvale Regatta in mid-May on the Schuylkill in Philadelphia. So a nice result from that team down in Philly. Right now, this crew looking to leave nothing on the water as they approach their last 30 strokes in the women's varsity lightweight 8 petite final. It's looking to be the MIT crew from Cambridge, Massachusetts, coming through with an advantage over Tulsa with solid open water lead. Now well into their last 20, we see a bit of a lift in the MIT shell, executing their sprint sequence, leaving nothing on the water this morning at Lake Natoma. It is MIT from Cambridge, Mass. To win the women's varsity lightweight 8 petite final with an open water advantage over second place Tulsa University from Oklahoma. And we'll see the grand final for the women's varsity lightweight 8 a little later in the morning. For now, switching gears back to the men's side for the men's varsity lightweight 8 petite final up next. We'll have times in shortly for the women and their lightweight 8 petite final, which we just saw go by. And times, unofficial times, are in for the women's varsity lightweight 8 petite final. It was MIT at a 6:49.7, with second place Tulsa at a 6:56.6. And the drone coming up now for the men's varsity lightweight 8 petite final. This will also be a 2-boat race between Georgetown and Navy in lanes 1 and 2. And the crews are off. It's a clean start from both Georgetown and Navy for the men's varsity lightweight 8 petite final. This is a 2-boat race. These crews now moving through their starting sequence in their high strokes and cruising through the first 200 meters down. We'll see in just a moment exactly where they'll end up coming out of this starting move. It's looking like slight advantage to Georgetown. Navy right with them though. Navy on the move as they lengthen into their base rhythm. Very tight racing between these two. And of course, these guys have lined up before at the Eastern Sprints Championship. It looks like it's Navy now advantage over Georgetown by a couple of seats with 300 meters down. So a very tight race at the Eastern Sprints between these two crews earlier this year. Navy won the petite final by just a little less than a second over Georgetown. And it is Navy now 3 seats up over Georgetown. We'll send it over to the water for the middle 1,000.
All right, as we join the varsity lightweight petite final, it's the Naval Academy. 3 seats up on the Hoyas. And I'll pass the watch over to my compatriot Bob Jockstetter. I have no issue identifying the blade colors of these two schools, having coached at both institutions back in the 80s. 37 for the midshipmen. 38.5 for Georgetown. And the Academy has about 3 seats over the Hoyas. Working hard here, getting the legs on. These two crews marching down the path here in the second 500. Navy continuing to try and press its advantage. And both of them are really attacking the water. Georgetown trying to find an answer here. They desperately don't want Navy to get out and give them any more, so they're digging in. Still at 38 strokes a minute for Georgetown. And we passed the halfway mark. You know, a tight race here between these two rivals from the mid-Atlantic. Ah, very good. And they're both starboard stroke boats, observes Bob. Navy now has stroke on the bow of the Georgetown hull. And they continue to try and swing open and get a little bit more bite per stroke. Two men in that Navy shell, a little bit out of uniform here. We don't strictly enforce those. He's got a red hat on, or a red bandana. It's hard to tell from here. As they continue to stretch out. Now coxswain on the bow of Georgetown. But there's a lot of fight left in that Georgetown crew. And they're both at 37 with about 600 meters to go. This is not over yet.
And moving into the last 500 meters now, it is the men's lightweight 8 petite final. We see Navy up almost 1 length on Georgetown, though it looks like these guys have sat on that margin for about 200 meters or so. So Georgetown not losing contact with Navy as they approach the last 300 and 250 meters or so. But it's looking to be Navy. Have they broken into an open water lead, or is Georgetown keeping their bow ball on them? It looks like it's the latter. I'd say Georgetown keeping contact with Navy as these guys approach the last 250 and into the red. Crews now moving into the last 250. It is Navy with Georgetown on their tail, keeping their bow ball in it. These crews definitely both took a lift into their sprint sequence as we move towards the last 20 strokes, but it's Navy. Again, these crews no stranger to each other from the Mid-Atlantic. They saw each other in the petite final at the Eastern Sprints. They finished less than a second away from each other there. But look at Navy go now. Georgetown looking to answer them though. An exciting race between these two, but it does look like it'll be Navy in the final few strokes. Georgetown's bow ball sticking in it. A nice sprint from Georgetown, but it's Navy to win the petite final, followed by Georgetown in second. A great race from both of these crews. It might take them a minute.
Okay, we have the official or the unofficial results for that last race. The men's varsity lightweight 8 petite final, the Naval Academy coming away in 5:54.2 and Georgetown 5:56.1. So great sprint by both crews. Navy just edging out Georgetown for the petite final of the lightweight 8. So we're moving back into some of the heavyweight action here. The petite final coming up next for the men's third varsity 8, your 1050 race. The petite final for the men's third varsity 8 race. We have Boston University in lane 1. Their neighbors from Boston, Northeastern in lane 2, Wisconsin in 3, Dartmouth in 4, Syracuse in 5, and Cornell in 6. So 6 Eastern Sprints crews for this petite final of the third varsity 8. We'll be out to the start shortly to catch the start of the third varsity 8 petite final. Okay, so we're back out on the drone with a great view of the lake here, Lake Natoma, just outside of Sacramento. Great conditions. The race course has been proving very fair all day long here. We are looking for the start now, coming up, of the third varsity 8 petite final. Boston in lane 1, Northeastern 2, Wisconsin 3, Dartmouth 4, Syracuse 5, and Cornell in 6. So as we fly up to the start, you can see all crews are at the starting platform, locked on, at rest right now, not quite ready for the start, waiting for the signal from the judge referees. So a little bit of breeze blowing off the shore side right now. Not much. You can see from the view from the drone that the conditions are very nice and calm up near the starting line, just a little ripple going through. All right, so the crews are locked in, going from the shore side, the top part of the Jumbotron screen. You can see we have Boston University, Northeastern, Wisconsin, Dartmouth, Syracuse, and Cornell closest to the camera. Good start. All 6 crews are away clean here. We're into the high strokes here off the start. So A good effort being shown right now in lane 2, just inching out ahead of the crowd. So lane 2, Northeastern, just getting their bow ball ahead. It looks like a good start here from Dartmouth, and out in lane 6, Cornell as well. Wisconsin and Boston University in the mix, with Syracuse being the only crew to drop off a little bit here in the high strokes. So as we get down to the shift here, we'll see if Northeastern can hold on to that lead and keep moving away from Boston University and Wisconsin. Looks like Dartmouth is still holding on well in that second, maybe third place position here for Dartmouth, with Cornell very close in there as well. And it looks like BU has moved back into that Northeastern lead as they got down, and they're settling now into the base rate. So BU doing a very nice job on their shift, going from the high strokes into a more maintainable cadence, and Boston University taking the lead away from their neighbors from Boston, Northeastern University. So we have a good race going on between the first two. Boston University really laying it down now as they got through into the base of the race here. So it's Boston University, Northeastern, Wisconsin, and Dartmouth, with Cornell very close for that third spot. Let's go ahead and head out to the launch.
Throwing them in high and hard. They've been at 39 and above the entire first 500. They've got 1/2 of a length on Northeastern in this petite final of the third varsity 8. It's then a 1/2 a length from Northeastern back to both Dartmouth and Wisconsin, another seat or two back to Cornell, and then another seat back to Syracuse. BU 37.5, still throwing them in, and they have now got 3/4 of a length over Northeastern. Northeastern maintains that 1/2 a length over 3 crews now. Syracuse has joined Dartmouth and Wisconsin. I'm sorry, Cornell has joined Dartmouth and Wisconsin, with Syracuse only a seat back. So it's BU now with the coxswain on the bow ball of the Huskies. They are just attacking this first 1,000 madly. They are still at 39, and we're 900 meters into this race, and they are just about a length ahead of Northeastern. Northeastern still with that 1/2 a length over Wisconsin, Dartmouth, and Cornell, and it's only 2 seats further back to Syracuse. So we've got a really nice 5-boat race going on for 2 through 6, but Boston University really went after that first 1,000 hard. Now, are they paying the price, or are the Huskies surging? Because that little bit of open water is now overlap. Northeastern pushing its bow ball back up into the BU hull. They've nearly gotten it back up to the coxswain. We did see the stroke and the coxswain look over, and they've stopped Northeastern, but it's still bow ball on coxswain. 1/2 a length, 2/3 of a length behind Northeastern. We've got Wisconsin just barely ahead of Dartmouth. Dartmouth a seat maybe on Cornell, and Cornell 2 seats on Syracuse. So Northeastern continues to attack. Again, they pick up a foot or two, and it's BU still in the lead at 650 meters to go. Northeastern closing slowly, but they'll need to pick up that rate of progress, or they're going to run out of race course before they can catch the Terriers. So as we approach 500 meters, it's Boston University, coxswain on bow ball of Northeastern. Northeastern beginning to pull away from Wisconsin. Wisconsin 1/2 a length on Dartmouth and Cornell. Syracuse revving it up. They're drawing level with Cornell.
All right, so still a lot of overlap in the pack here, but Boston University in lane 1 taking the advantage right now. So Boston University with about a 8-seat lead or so, coxswain looking at the bow ball of the Northeastern crew. So as we come by our camera on the dock, it looks like Northeastern's inched up a little bit, getting their bow ball up to the footboards of the 7-seat, with Wisconsin about that same margin behind Northeastern, and Dartmouth running just about 6 seats or so behind Wisconsin. So as we ramp up for the sprint here, we got a good race going on. We'll see if Northeastern has enough in it to give Boston a challenge here. Wisconsin in the third position right now with Dartmouth just behind them. On the outside, it's Cornell and Syracuse in lane 6 and lane 5. But Boston University alongside the shore here, rowing a great race, leading most of the way down the course here after a quick start by Northeastern. But it's Boston University up ahead of Northeastern, with Northeastern really raising the rate here in the final 200 meters. So Northeastern closing quick, but Boston looking like they're going to have enough room for this one. BU with about a 2-seat, 3-seat lead over Northeastern. So it's Boston University, Northeastern, followed by a little open water back to Wisconsin, who's a half length ahead of Dartmouth, Cornell, and Syracuse in 6th. So a good race there across the board. So a great race by Boston University. Northeastern giving them a challenge, not really letting them off the hook early in the race, giving them a very good challenge in the final 500 meters. Wisconsin in a solid 3rd place position. So we'll get back with those unofficial race results of the 3rd varsity petite final. And we'll move on to the next race, the 11 a.m. start of the grand final, a championship final of the 3rd varsity 8. They're racing for the Stewards Cup in lane 1, Washington, lane 2, Harvard, lane 3, Yale, lane 4, California, lane 5, Navy, and lane 6, Princeton. All right, we have the unofficial race results for that last race, the petite final of the 3v8. Boston coming across the line first in 5:52.8. Northeastern 5:54.1. Wisconsin 5:58.5. Dartmouth 6 minutes 0.1 second. Cornell 6 minutes 0.7 seconds. And Syracuse in 6:01.4. So good race there. In the petite final, we can expect more of the same in the grand final of the Stewards Cup, the 3rd varsity 8. So we have last year's winner, Princeton University, came away with the 3rd varsity 8 at Mercer Lake in the 2016 IRA Championship. Princeton out in lane 6 today. Washington in lane 1 was the winner of the semifinals. Moving through California in a very tight race between California and Washington. And Harvard was the winner of the other semifinal, with Yale coming in second in that semifinal. So we're looking for a very tight race here for the medals in the 3rd varsity 8 grand final coming up next. All right, so as we fly up to the start for the drone view, it looks like the crews are sitting at ease at the catch right now, not buried yet. You can see a little ripple coming across the water. The slight bit of headwind coming down Lake Natoma now, so the time's not going to be looking to set course records here today, but good fair conditions across the whole body of water. So looking like lane 1, Washington, lane 2, Harvard, lane 3, Yale, lane 4, California, lane 5, Navy, and lane 6, Princeton. So Princeton was your 2016 winners. They are the holders of the Stewards Cup for the last year. We'll be crowning a new champion in the 3rd varsity 8 shortly. So all crews now appear to be locked in. We are moments away from the start of the first grand final of the heavyweight men's 8s, the 3rd varsity 8 grand final coming up in moments. Looking across the field, we have a start. All yellow bows of the Empacher shells here in this grand final of the third varsity 8. Washington in lane 1, Harvard right next to them, Yale in 3, California in 4. And it looks like California getting a good start, nice and fast and aggressive from the Golden Bears. Washington moving with them, moving quickly off the start as well, with Harvard rowing well and into that second place position, just barely ahead of Washington and just slightly behind California. We got the crew from Yale just behind them as well, and we have not seen any drop-off here from Navy and Princeton yet. We have good overlap of all 6 crews. California and Harvard just slightly ahead of the crew from Washington, with the other 3 crews, Yale, Navy, and Princeton, just behind those 3 leaders. So we're going to have a tight race coming up for the medals here in the third varsity 8 grand final. It looks like Harvard has the early edge on the field. California and Washington, I'd saying it's almost too close to call between the 2 right now, but great shot to see the action of the race here. Washington looking to get a little bit of power going. It looks like Washington taking a move. Washington's bow ball on the bow seat of Harvard, with Harvard crossing the 500-meter line first. We'll turn it over to the guys in the launch.
Harvard at 38 has a couple of seats on the Huskies from Washington. And it's California with a couple of feet over Yale. And then Yale a couple seats over, looks like Navy, and then Navy with a seat over Princeton. But Washington now is trying to turn up the heat on Harvard and draw a level. But that Harvard crew really had a fast start. They were at 35, Harvard still at 38, and this is really a great showdown between the Washington and Harvard programs. And California now trying to take a press to get back into it. I can hear some screams over there in lane 1 and 2, and the Huskies have recaptured the lead by 1 seat over the Crimson. We'll get a rating check on the Huskies. They're at 38.5, and wow, I think they just took a 10, Bob. They are just like walking. A quarter length in 10 strokes. The Huskies crushed it at 750, and you can just see the body language in the swing open. They are now 3 or 4 seats up on Harvard. But in the middle of the pack here, it's really exciting. As Cal and Yale are stroke for stroke. Cal's at 39, and Yale at 38.5, and Navy right there, just a couple seats back, and Princeton just a couple seats back of them. But Washington just took another 10, and they're cranking it open. 39 for Washington, and it just seems like it's power on demand. The coxswain says, okay, now we need a move. Thank you very much. They're taking a seat a stroke off the Crimson right now. Silver and bronze medals are going to be unbelievable. Don't leave the beach. Here they come. Third 500. Harvard still owns that second spot. But Yale and Cal, Yale now up on Cal by 2 seats. 39 for Washington. Just throwing the strokes in. Harvard 38. So Harvard still has its bow on the coxswain of Washington. And Cal and Yale, that bronze medal is going to be precious. 500 to go, and California has a half a deck over Yale. Who can wind it up? Princeton and Navy very tight here as well. All right, watch out for Yale on that bronze medal.
All right, so the Huskies are hunting for their second gold medal of the day. Here comes Washington in lane 1 with about almost a length lead over Harvard, and California really trying to turn it on and press Harvard here for that silver medal spot. But Harvard has the silver medal position locked up right now. Yale and California both charging, seeing how things can shake out in the last 250 meters. But it is Washington in lane 1 alongside the shore with the lead right now. Harvard charging hard after them, lifting the rate. Nice clean catches from Washington. You can see the good splash unified together. Harvard in second with California chasing them, as well as Yale right behind them. So we have a fantastic race right now coming up. Washington looking to get their second medals of the day, looking to take home the Stewards Cup for 2017. And it's looking like Washington just about a half a length, with Harvard and California battling really close. Princeton moving up, and it is Washington, Harvard, California, Yale just over Princeton, and the Naval Academy still overlapping with Princeton. Great racing there. 6 boats barely getting separated over the 2,000-meter racing course. Great effort from the Huskies in lane 1. So Washington coming away with their second medals of the day. Washington winning the Stewards Cup for 2017. We'll get those unofficial race results to you as soon as we can, and move back up to the start for the start of the second varsity petite final and grand final coming up next. You got him, All right, so some excitement in the Husky crew. We're waiting to get the unofficial race results to you, but a good race from Harvard and California for those other medals, being pressed by Yale and Princeton the whole way down the race course as well. We have the unofficial race results for the third varsity 8 grand final. And we have Washington in first, 5:47.289. Harvard in second, 5:49.35. California, 5:50.9. Yale in 5:51.6. Princeton, 5:52.7. And the Naval Academy in 6th, 5:54.9. So congratulations to Washington, your 2017 Stewards Cup third varsity 8 champions.
And coming up next, the men's second varsity 8 petite final, with a beautiful shot from the drone coming up to the start line. In this race, we'll see Brown, Northeastern, George Washington, Pennsylvania, Cornell, and Dartmouth. Northeastern comes in with the fastest time from the semis in lane 2, a couple seconds ahead of Brown in lane 1. but anything can happen in this petite final for the men's second varsity eights. And we see the crews lining up. Sitting up at the catch. And the crews gaining their point with a little bit of wind. And these crews are off. This is the start of the men's second varsity 8 petite final. A clean, fast start across the board for all of these crews. With a pretty even field here as these crews move through their high strokes and toward their base rhythm. I'd say a little bit of an advantage to Brown Northeastern. They're starting to push back on George Washington just a little bit. Pennsylvania sticking with Northeastern. Cornell out as well, but it looks to be Brown, one of our early leaders here. All of the crews now lengthening into their base cadence. Brown up on Northeastern by about a half a length. With the big red about 1 to 2 seats behind Brown. So it is Brown, our early leader here in the men's second varsity 8 petite final. They've pushed their bow ball out. Cornell looking to go with them. The Huskies Northeastern as well. I'd say Brown Northeastern and Cornell moving pretty quickly out of the gate and towards the first 500. Brown, Cornell will hand it over to the launch in the middle 1,000.
Appears to be quite angry at not being in the final. They've got a length already, rowing at 37. It's Cornell in second with maybe a seat or two over Northeastern. About a deck behind Northeastern is Dartmouth. They are 2 seats ahead of Pennsylvania and George Washington. So it's Brown, a really strong start, and now a really strong body. A length ahead of Cornell. Cornell has moved out to about a deck length lead on Northeastern now. And Dartmouth looks like they're coming up to challenge Northeastern for third.
Cornell at 38.
Cornell is rowing 38. They've managed to stay right on Brown's tail. It's 1 length exactly. Then it's a quarter length back now to Northeastern. Northeastern with a quarter length on Dartmouth and Pennsylvania, and then another 3 seats back to George Washington. Cornell making a nice little move here. Cornell has gotten its bow back up into the Brown boat, and they've got their bow ball up on that coxswain as we cross the 1,000-meter mark. And they continue to march. Dartmouth at 35.5 is going right with them, as is Pennsylvania. But the Cornell boat has moved back on Brown. They were a full length back. Their bow ball is now on the Brown 7 seat. It's a quarter length from Cornell back to now the 3rd place Quakers from Pennsylvania, who have taken a 2-seat lead over Dartmouth. Dartmouth now has about 2 seats on Northeastern, and then it's 3/4 of a length back to George Washington. We've had a response over in lane 1 from Brown. They did stop the move from Cornell, and it's back to coxswain on bow ball. but everything's tightening up. Places 2 through 5. Cornell, 700 meters to go, has a deck on Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania had looked like a tough first 500, but they've been creeping through the field since. As we approach 500, Cornell puts another move on Brown. Can they find enough speed over this last 500 meters? They've got their bow ball back up on the stroke seat, and Penn is coming up to draw level with Cornell. Great fight for 2 through 5.
Men's second varsity 8 petite final coming down the course, and what a race this is. We see Brown got out early and stayed ahead with the rest of the pack right on their tail, keeping an eye on second place Cornell and third place Penn, though there's still time as these crews come in to about 400, 350 to go, but it is Bruno with an open water lead, looks to be over the rest of the field. Cornell is at Penn for second and third in this petite final. We'll see as these crews get a little bit closer, but definitely the entire pack creeping on Brown about in the third 500, just before the 5 to go. But it's Brown in lane 1 on the charge. They are surging towards the finish line now in their last 200 meters or so. Keeping an eye on Penn and Cornell on the far side too. What a tight race. Dartmouth right in the mix with them. But Brown clearly in control of this race as they move into the last 20, 15 strokes. It's Bruno looking to assert themselves in this petite final. What a tight race for second though. Pennsylvania, Dartmouth, and Cornell. I'm saying Penn for second, third to Dartmouth, fourth to Cornell, fifth to the Northeastern Huskies. And coming through the line now, George Washington. What an exciting petite final race from these crews, but it was Brown to win the petite.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Have her,
And awaiting unofficial times for the men's second varsity 8 petite final.
say your winners of the...
And your winners of the third varsity 8, the Washington Huskies here, gold medal winners. Men's third varsity 8, congratulations to the Washington Huskies.
All right, so we'll be headed out to the grand final coming up next of the men's second varsity 8. The Kennedy Cup, been awarded since 1898, one of the longest standing trophies in collegiate sports. So the Kennedy Cup race coming up next. Washington in lane 1, California in 2, Yale in 3, Harvard in 4, Boston University in 5, and Princeton out in lane 6. Your 2016 winner of the Kennedy Cup, the second varsity 8, was Harvard. And we are looking at this race coming up next. It looks like the crews are on the starting platform. We'll see if we can get you the unofficial petite final results here before this race gets started. The petite final winning that was Brown in 551.3, Penn in 552.8, Dartmouth 553.5, Cornell 554.7, Northeastern 556.7, and George Washington in 603.4. So we are up at the start for the men's second varsity 8 grand final. So the Kennedy Cup, a long standing race, the second varsity, the junior varsity 8s Great tradition in this race. Washington has the most wins in the second Varsity 8 event in the history of the Kennedy Cup. 27 wins for the Huskies. Cornell is the next highest amount of wins with 15. And last year's winner, Harvard, is in lane 4. So we have Washington in 1, California in 2. It's a clean start from all crews. It looks like, if anything, Washington has just inched ahead. Lane 1 over lane 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, who are tightly packed. It's the Huskies in lane 1 with a slight early lead over California, Yale, Harvard, Boston, and Princeton. So we got a good shot from the drone here. It looks like a solid start from Princeton in the outside lane 6. Huskies maybe getting just a slight lead early on over the field. So Washington with a lead over, it appears to be California, Yale, Harvard, and Princeton nearly locked dead level, with Boston University just slightly off the pace in the high strokes. But the Huskies are being very aggressive, attacking the start of this race. It looks like they've established about a 2 to 3 seat lead, maybe moving up to 4 seats here early in the race. It looks like California in a solid second position, with Princeton right with them as well, and Harvard in there with Yale just trailing Harvard by maybe a deck length. So it looks like the Huskies have got their race started, the good execution of their start into the body of the race now, settling down, rowing high but rowing very long. Princeton doing a nice job out in lane 6 with California, Yale, and Harvard tightly packed. Let's go ahead and head out to the launch.
The Tigers from Princeton are in strong second. Washington 40. All these crews are rowing 40 strokes a minute for 500 meters, the first 500. But the Tigers are really rowing tough here in lane 6. Then it's a dead heat for third for lanes 2, 3, and 4. Cal, Yale, and Harvard are all level. The only one back slightly is BU. BU is about 3/4 of a length back behind Harvard. Washington taking a push. The coxswain looking over at the Tigers. Washington probably has, it's hard to say, half a length over the Tigers. Strong performance by the Tigers here, the Eastern Sprint champions, and they realize they've got to go early and go with the dogs on the inside in lane 1. 38 strokes a minute. Princeton is not letting Washington go. I'd call that a 1/4 of a length. The Huskies ahead of Princeton. Then it's dead level for third. Yale, Cal, Harvard. All right, Washington's putting on the motor now. This is what the 3V did. The Washington 3V took a move before the 1,000 and after the 1,000. And Washington just put the accelerator down. Here they go. Watch that again. Put the camera on that. And Washington's just pulling away now from Princeton. Third 500. It's 3/4 of a length now, but it's power on demand by the West Coast boys. But here comes Princeton. They're answering. Both Princeton and Washington at 39 strokes a minute. A super courageous race by the Tigers. Nothing separating the middle crews now. It looks like Cal may have dropped. No, I'm sorry. Yale may have dropped back a little bit. Harvard's coming up a touch to challenge Princeton. And Washington's going again. Washington with a full length now on the Tigers. The Tigers with about 1/3 of a length over Harvard. Harvard and Cal very close for that third spot. All right,
Okay, so the Huskies in lane 1 with their big stroke seat, Victor Pivak. He is really putting the pressure down, but great effort from Princeton in the outside lane. Coach Greg Hughes' crew really trying to get into the fight and establish themselves in that medal position. So Princeton out in lane 6 going for the silver medal. and pressing the Huskies as much as possible. But the Huskies in lane 1 alongside the shore with a tremendous middle 1,000 to move away from the field. So as we approach the beach, it's the Huskies in first here. A tight race going between Princeton, California, Yale, and Harvard, with BU just behind. But Huskies looking to take and go 3 for 3 on the day now, so 250 meters to go. The Huskies are in the lead. California really pressing into that Princeton second place position, but Yale and Harvard not giving them any room either. So it is Washington looking like they've got a very solid lead here. Moving into the last 100 meters, lifting that rate up, rolling with great strength and length here, and a ton of pressure. But Princeton, who took that lead and took that chance in the middle 1,000, just trying to hold off California, Yale, and Harvard. What a race for the medals. So it's looking like Washington with, oh wow, Princeton just maybe an inch or two ahead. It's going to be too tight to call, but Princeton, California, Yale, and Harvard in that next pack, with Boston University wrapping up this grand final right now. Tremendous effort, great racing there from all of those crews in the grand final of the men's second varsity 8. It's looking like your Huskies are going to add to their total of overall wins in the men's second varsity for the Kennedy Cup. So the Huskies coming away with the victory, and we'll get those unofficial results to you shortly to see if we can sort out how the rest of that pack shook out. So tremendous race from Washington, hanging back just a little bit on the start, moving ahead of the field, and really pressing through at the finish in the sprint. Coming up next, we'll be moving into the varsity 8s, the first race for one of the heavyweight varsity 8s for the day. The 4th level final of the men's varsity 8 is coming up as your 11:30 race. So we'll get these unofficial results to you as soon as we can for the Kennedy Cup Grand Final. All right, so we got 6 races left on the day. A good showing from the Huskies there in the second varsity 8. We're moving on to the varsity 8s. The varsity women's lightweight grand final is your 11:40 race. The third final of the men's varsity heavyweights at 11:50. The grand final of the lightweight 8 for the men at 12:05. The petite final at 12:15. And the grand final of the men's heavyweight varsity 8 at 12:30 today. So 6 races left, but we have the unofficial results of the second varsity 8 grand final, and it's the Huskies, 5:38.6. California in second, 5:40.720, just edging Princeton in 5:40.777. And Yale in fourth at 5:40.824. So a very close race between those 3 crews. Harvard in 5:41.18 and Boston University in 5:52.0. So a great win for the Huskies, 3 for 3 on the day. And we are back up to the start now. We have our next race on the starting platform, the men's varsity 8 4th level final. Hobart in lane 1, Oregon State in lane 2, Santa Clara in 3, St. Joe's in 4, and UC San Diego in lane 5. So a 5-boat 4th level final here. We will have a 6-boat 3rd level final and a 7-boat petite final. So these 5 crews looking to sort things out for the placement in the 4th level final of the men's varsity 8. Hobart came from your National Invitation Rowing Championship As an automatic qualifier, Oregon State as an at-large bid out of the Pac-12 Conference, Santa Clara and UC San Diego, the two qualifiers from the Western Sprints, and St. Joe's qualifying from the Dadvale Regatta. So these are the varsity eights, the top guys from these 5 programs. Hobart, Oregon State, Santa Clara, St. Joe's, and UC San Diego. Expecting another tight race here in the 4th level final. We got to start here. So the drone view, you can see all 5 crews with a nice clean start. It looks like we're not really getting a whole lot of separation from the crews. Santa Clara may have jumped out to the early lead with UC San Diego and Hobart, as well as Oregon State right in there. And it looks like St. Joe's, if anything, is just maybe a foot back of the Oregon State crew, with Hobart now establishing a lead, UC San Diego right with them. So 5 boats across, and a whole lot of overlap here in the first 250 meters. And it looks like Hobart doing a nice job with a quick, aggressive start. We'll see how things go through the body of the race here. But right now, you got Hobart with Santa Clara running in second, and very close between 3rd place for UC San Diego and Oregon State, with St. Joe's just a little bit off of those 2 crews. So Hobart with an aggressive, quick, and rowing very high off the start, getting into that solid position where they can try to control the whole race. Oregon State now looks to be moving in with Santa Clara. Oregon State and Santa Clara very close for that 2nd position here in the 4th level final. Let's go ahead and head out to Bob and Fred in the launch for their view.
It's Hobart with a half a length lead as they cross 500 meters of the 4th level final of the men's varsity 8. Hobart about 2/3 of a length now in front of Oregon State and Santa Clara. Santa Clara and Oregon State have about 1/3 of a length on St. Joseph's, and St. Joseph's with half a length on UC San Diego. Hobart at 37, 3/4 of a length ahead. And it looks like we've got a pretty good challenge coming on now from Oregon State. They've taken over 2nd place, and they're moving back to a half a length behind Hobart. It's another deck back to Santa Clara. St. Joseph's making a move. St. Joseph's closing quickly on Santa Clara. They have gone from a half a length down to now dead level. And that puts them as well a deck behind Oregon State. 38 for Oregon State. They're still closing on the leader, Hobart, but St. Joseph's coming on strong. Well, it's now Hobart by about a 1/4 length over Oregon State. Oregon State by a deck over St. Joseph's, and St. Joseph's now has a deck on Santa Clara. Then it's a length from Santa Clara back to UCSD. Oregon State still coming. Oregon State now about a seat behind Hobart. St. Joseph's falls back just a hair. They're now half a length behind Oregon State and still has a deck on Santa Clara. Hobart at 36.5 has just been caught. It's Oregon State now going by. Oregon State a seat on Hobart, and St. Joseph's making another push. St. Joseph's making a push, and Santa Clara coming with them. The leader is now Oregon State. It is Hobart 2 seats back, and 3 seats back of them it's St. Joseph's. St. Joseph's with 2 seats on Santa Clara. So these 4 front runners are really closing in on one another as we approach 500 meters. It's 3 seats for Oregon State with 500 meters to go.
All right. right, so a very strong start from the crew from Hobart, but Oregon State with a solid middle 1,000 now, taking a couple seat lead here as we get alongside the shore. We'll take a look and see what the margins are, but Oregon State looks to be in the lead of this 4th level final of the Varsity 8. So Oregon State just over Hobart. Santa Clara and St. Joe's really trying to press. We got a 4-boat, tightly packed bunch here. It looks like Oregon State with about 3 to 4 seats over Hobart. Hobart just over Santa Clara and St. Joe's. St. Joe's pressing with in that 3rd position. Santa Clara just behind them. Oregon State on the lead here as they approach the final 250 meters. All the crews looking to lift the rate and sprint for the line. Oregon State in the orange, lane 2. Hobart in lane 1 in the white. It's Oregon State moving away from Hobart now in the sprint with St. Joe's just behind them. And Santa Clara just right off of the stern of St. Joe's. So here we go. We got Oregon State on the lead. Has Oregon State moved out and made a bigger margin on Hobart? Hobart's rowing well and high here in the final 100 meters. It's Oregon State looking for the win in this 4th level final. So here they go, the Beavers from Corvallis. About 10 meters to the line. It looks like Oregon State, Hobart, with St. Joe's just a deck or less ahead of Santa Clara. And UC San Diego coming to the line now to finish it out. So a great race, tightly packed bunch here of Oregon State ahead of Hobart, St. Joe's, and Santa Clara. We'll get those unofficial results to you as soon as we can. But great race there. Good start by the Hobart crew. Oregon State staying strong in the middle 1,000 to move back into that big lead that Hobart gained in the first 500, and a great sprint to move away. So congratulations, Oregon State University. We got the 4th level final. We'll get those unofficial results to you as soon as we can, and we'll go back out to the start for a grand final where we will crown a national champion of the women's lightweight 8. So 11:40 grand final start time for the women's varsity lightweight 8. The 4th level final. We have the unofficial results in. We have unofficially Oregon State University 5:48.7, Hobart in 5:50.0, St. Joe's in 5:51.7, Santa Clara 5:51.9, and UC San Diego in 6:01.4. Great race to all the crews. We'll head back out to the drone view for the start of the women's varsity lightweight 8. We'll have Stanford in lane 1, Boston University, Radcliffe, Princeton, Wisconsin, and Georgetown. And for those of you watching at home or on the Jumbotron, we're right now looking at the University of Washington Huskies, Kennedy Cup champions for 2017. The Huskies' 2nd varsity 8 coming away, and with the 3rd set of gold medals for the University of Washington Huskies. And then I'll go back to me. All right, so we are up at the start in the drone view, looking down on the warm-up area and the starting platform for the start of the women's varsity lightweight 8 grand final. Stanford in lane 1, Boston University in 2, Radcliffe in 3, Princeton in 4, Wisconsin in 5, and Georgetown in lane 6. Stanford was your 2016 champions in this event, as well as the 2015 champions. And they are racing for the Camden County Freeholders Trophy, first awarded in 1997. Wisconsin holding the most titles in the women's varsity lightweight 8 with 6 championships. Stanford with 5, so Stanford with a win here today could match Wisconsin's title count. And Boston University, having a great season in the lightweight women's events, is looking for a first title in the IRA regatta. So the women's varsity lightweight 8's about to get started. We got Stanford Boston University, Radcliffe in 3, Princeton in 4, Wisconsin in 5, and Georgetown out in lane 6. So the wind looks to have even died down a little bit at the start. Not a whole lot of waves or wakes going through the starting platform area right now. You can see the crews are all locked in, sitting calmly at the catch, not blades buried yet, waiting for the call from the referees for the start of the race. All right, so we have the lane 3 coming off the starting platform. Radcliffe just repositioning themselves. They're going to get their stern back to the stake boat here pretty soon. We got 6 boats, and it looks like Radcliffe is going to back their stern into the starting platform, and we'll get reestablished, all crews aligned and ready to go here in just a moment. So we are moments away from the start of the final of the women's lightweight 8. So grand final, looking to crown a champion for 2017 for the Camden County Freeholders Trophy. So Radcliffe is locked in now, sculling their bow around, just trying to get a good position here, making sure that all coxswains have a nice straight shot down their lane. So Stanford, your 2-time back-to-back champions here in lane 1, looking to see what they can do here in 2017. So Stanford, Boston, Radcliffe, Princeton, Wisconsin, and Georgetown. So just a little bit of sculling around, tapping the bow around there. You can see the Wisconsin crew making a small correction, Radcliffe as well. But all crews locked on now, sitting calmly at the catch with the blades buried, waiting for the call to start the race. But all crews are locked on. You can see we have a start now. So all crews are off clean in the first 3 strokes, looking like Stanford, that lane 1 crew, the favored lane, the highest seed coming into the regatta. Stanford taking seats early on. What a crushing start from the Cardinal. So great race coming here from Stanford. Stanford taking seats on Boston University early on with, I would say, in second place right now, the crew from Princeton and Wisconsin challenging Stanford. But Stanford with a very aggressive start. It looks like BU's got back on terms a little bit more with Princeton and Wisconsin. Georgetown and Radcliffe just dropping back slightly. But Stanford, look at that. They are shot out of the start, taking that lead. It looks like their coxswain is nearly looking across at the bow seat of Boston University right now. So a great start from the Cardinal. It looks like they've established their rhythm. They've now shifted out into the base of their piece here. Princeton running in that second place position. Boston University really pressing Princeton. It may be Boston University in the second position now, with Wisconsin just off of those two in 4th, Radcliffe in 5th, and Georgetown in 6th. But at the top of your screen, it's the crew from Stanford that is taking almost a open water lead, and we're getting ready to pass it over to Fred and Bob on the water.
All right, the grand final of the women's lightweight 8s for the national title. The Stanford crew is shot out of a gun. They went off at 44 to 45, and they have open water at 500 meters. They look like a sewing machine, just bobbing up and down, but in uniform. 39 now, a quarter length open. Boston University is clinging on to second place, but being challenged aggressively by Princeton. Princeton's 2 seats back of BU. Wisconsin is a couple seats back of Princeton. Radcliffe just a seat or so back of Wisconsin. And Georgetown in 6th. Just about 3/4 of a length back of Radcliffe. I can't believe my eyes. Stanford has got a half a length of open water in the second 500 meters. 39 strokes a minute. I don't know what they're feeding them there in Palo Alto, but they are really pushing it out. So now Princeton is just about to catch Boston University. Princeton 37, BU 37. Wisconsin right in the hunt. Radcliffe has fallen back a bit. And Georgetown is trailing. As they go through the 1,000, it's Stanford with a half a length open water. Princeton still just a seat down on BU. Those two have 3/4 of a length, or call it a half a length, on Wisconsin. Wisconsin has a couple of half a length or a third of a length on Radcliffe. Radcliffe has 2/3 of a length on Georgetown. It's going to be difficult for the camera work here for us to show the leader and the middle of the pack even. Boston University taking a press now in that second spot. And they have got the biggest advantage they've had over Princeton so far. We're going to just leave Stanford alone. They're out front, and focus on the silver and bronze. 37.5 for BU. And no one's going to catch Stanford, so it's just a question of who's going to be second, third, and can Wisconsin make a push into Princeton. But that's a full length back for Princeton, ahead of Wisconsin. Radcliffe is coming up now to challenge Wisconsin, but gold, silver, and bronze seems to be pretty much settled here with 650 meters to go. Although Princeton now is challenging BU again, so silver is not tied up yet. So Stanford is going to win this race, I cleverly predict. Boston University is a strong second with Princeton challenging. Over to the beach.
I know. Boston University, and it looking like Princeton in that solid third place position. So Stanford cruising to a win. A great start from them. They were so aggressive off the start. They got that open water lead, and they have not looked back at all. So first year Cardinal coach Kate Burko has got to be watching this Stanford crew with a smile. So as they head down the beach looking for the finish line, it's Stanford with that clear lead over Boston University in a very solid silver medal performance here. Princeton just behind them, Radcliffe in fourth position with the outside crews, Wisconsin and Georgetown. So Stanford looking to come away with the 2017 Camden County Freeholders Trophy for championship in the women's lightweight varsity 8. Stanford along the shore here, lifting the rate, sending it for home. Boston University maybe closing that gap just slightly from Stanford's largest margin. Princeton pressing BU as much as they can. And Wisconsin closing on Radcliffe. So Stanford looking great as they approach the finish line. It's Stanford over the line first. Open water back to Boston University in second, with Princeton in third. And it looks like Wisconsin and Radcliffe. Wisconsin just nosing out Radcliffe to finish the race, and Georgetown in sixth place position. So we had a great showing there in the women's lightweight varsity 8 grand final. The Camden County Freeholders Trophy will be Stanford's to take home for a third consecutive season. So we'll get those unofficial race results to you as soon as we can. But a great race from Stanford and a very good showing from Boston University and Princeton in the other medal positions. So Stanford, BU, and Princeton are your medalists in the women's lightweight 8. And as soon as we can, we'll let you know those times. But Stanford now with 6 titles in the women's varsity lightweight 8, tying things up with Wisconsin. So a good showing for the Cardinal. Let's get back out to the start. We're looking at a men's heavyweight varsity 8 third level final. So we are expecting to see really close racing here in the 3V race for the men's varsity 8s. And the final Unofficial results are in for the lightweight 8. It's Stanford at 625.3, ahead of Boston University 630.6, Princeton 632.8, Wisconsin 636.4, Radcliffe 636.6, and Georgetown in 642.2. And we're back up to the start with the drone view of the men's varsity 8 third level final.
And we are up at the start for the men's varsity 8 third level final. All crews now locked in and sitting up at the catch, awaiting the start. And these crews are off. It's Navy, Columbia, Florida Institute, George Washington, Stanford, and Drexel, with a clean start from all of these crews across the board. Stanford getting out early. Stanford a little bit ahead of Drexel over in lane 6. It's looking to be Stanford an early leader with Columbia. Florida Institute, pretty quick start as well. And these crews now locking into their base cadence. Columbia falling back a little bit. Navy keeping their nose out. I'd say fast start from Florida Institute too. Florida a little bit of a lead over George Washington next to them, but some tight racing here between Navy, Florida Institute, George Washington, and Stanford. Columbia not to be left behind, about a half a length behind Navy, who looks to be leading in lane 1. So keeping an eye on Navy and Stanford as we move to the launch on the water for the middle 1,000.
We've crossed 500 meters in the varsity 8 third level final, and for the first time in a few races, we have not had somebody blow the doors off the first 500. We've got a very tight race here. Right now it's Stanford and George Washington bow to bow for the lead, about a half a deck back to Navy, and FIT just about level with Navy. So Columbia about a half a length further back, and then a couple of seats from Columbia back to Drexel. So it is Stanford now at 38, establishing itself in front. Stanford has moved to about a quarter length lead over second place George Washington. George Washington has about a quarter length on Navy. Another couple of seats back to Stanford, fourth and fifth place in meter bar. Stanford and now George Washington trying to close on them, but those two nearly a length of the rest of the field. Drexel putting in a nice little push in Washington, and now an FIT in a seat and a half here. So the second 500 was the third 500. It looks like both of those crews are at 38.
And the crews are locked in at the start of the men's varsity lightweight 8 grand final. Our 2016 winner was Columbia for the 1922 trophy, which is what these crews will be racing for this morning. So we have Penn, Cornell, Columbia, Yale, Princeton, and Harvard in lanes 1 through 6. With Cornell posting the fastest heat time, Columbia with the second fastest heat time for this year. And it's a race for medals as these crews lock in. And it looks like they're gaining their point. A little bit of a crosswind up at the front. And these East Coast teams, of course, saw each other at Eastern Sprints. Cornell was our winner there with Harvard in second. Columbia finished fourth. Princeton in fifth and Yale in sixth at the Eastern Sprints. And these crews are off. It's the men's varsity lightweight 8 grand final. A fast start across the board from all of these crews and clean in their high strokes. Pretty quick start from Cornell in lane 2, no surprise there. Over to Princeton in lane 5, edging out their bow ball as well. I'd say Cornell and Princeton, some of our early leaders here. With the remaining crews not to be left out, Penn pretty close to Cornell over in lane 1, but it's looking like Cornell, Princeton, and Penn are early leaders over to the water.
Look at that. Is that lanes? Is that the lanes? And the national championship for varsity lightweight men's 8s. And it's the Big Red at 40 strokes a minute to the 500, finally getting a purchase over Pennsylvania in lane 1. Everyone else is within 1 or 2 seats of one another. It just looked like Penn and Cornell popped out to like 2/3 of a length lead over the field. And then finally Cornell got a little bit of an advantage over Penn. Now Cornell is settling down a beat. Cornell at 39 and Penn at 37. And Big Red is attacking the second 500. They're pushing it hard. Princeton is dead level with Yale, and those two have a seat over Columbia and Harvard, but they're 3/4 of a length back of Penn. Big Red getting into the swing of things, has stroke on bowman for Pennsylvania as the pack is starting to come back on Pennsylvania now. Yale has taken a seat off of Princeton and has moved into third. 1,000 meters down, 2:49 unofficially. Cornell still 8 seats up on Penn. Penn 4 or 5 seats up on Yale and Princeton. Harvard 1 seat back of Princeton and Yale. Here comes Columbia. They're all together. 4 boats across within a seat. Nothing has changed between Pennsylvania and Cornell. Pennsylvania looking very impressive at 37 strokes a minute. A dark horse in this race. According to a buddy of mine last night, he predicted Penn would win, but he's not far wrong. Cornell is right off, is trying to work really hard to stay up on Penn. It hasn't moved. It's been 7-8 seats. Yale now has a seat over Princeton. Princeton and Harvard locked dead level. Maybe Princeton has a seat over Harvard, and Columbia would be 6th, 1 seat back of that. All right, the Big Red are taking a move right here, and they finally got stroke halfway down Penn's deck. 500 meters to go. It's Cornell's race to win here. But what drama over here in lanes 4, 5, and 6. Columbia's off the pace, but here goes Yale. They're going up. Who's going to be third? Anyone's guess.
And moving into the last 500, a thrilling race for the men's varsity lightweight 8 grand final. Cornell early leaders ahead of Penn, but will it be Yale? Will it be Princeton for third and for bronze? I'd say Yale was on the move at about 700, 600 meters to go. These crews now moving into the last 250. Cornell, Penn, and what a race between Yale and Princeton in lanes 4 and 5. Cornell got out early, they rode it high, and it looks like they're maintaining that lead and chasing that gold medal. Cornell, the Big Red, moving in lane 2 over Pennsylvania in lane 1. Is it Yale? Is it Princeton over in lanes 4 and 5 as all of these crews surge towards the line in the men's varsity lightweight 8 grand final? Look at Cornell go, looking to solidify that gold medal, our winners of the Eastern Sprints Championships, and it's looking to be IRA's too. It is the Big Red, Pennsylvania right behind them. Really tight racing. It's looking Penn for the silver, but it is Cornell for the gold, Penn for the silver. I'd say Yale for the bronze, followed by Harvard, Princeton, and Columbia. And what an exciting race for the men's varsity lightweight 8. But is the Big Red Cornell to take gold and the 1922 trophy, which commemorates the origin of men's collegiate lightweight rowing back in 1922 and is presented to the winner of the men's lightweight varsity 8, which is Cornell University. So we'll have unofficial times here in just a moment. And the unofficial times are in for the men's varsity lightweight 8, the grand final. It was Cornell, the Big Red, at a 540.1. Pennsylvania in second, 541.0. Yale in third, 543.0. Harvard fourth at a 543.3. Princeton fifth, 545.7. And sixth place Columbia at a 545.9. What a last 500 from Yale. Up next is the men's varsity 8 petite final.
Okay, we are looking at the final 2 races of the day, the final 2 races of the 2017 season for the IRA. We have the petite final for the men's varsity heavyweight 8 coming up next at the 12:15 start. We'll be going up to the start line soon for that race. And the grand final, the Varsity Challenge Cup at 12:30 to crown the champion of the 2017 IRA. We are up in the drome for the live look at the start line. In the petite final, we'll have Dartmouth in lane 1, Syracuse in 2, Cornell in 3, Northeastern in 4, Wisconsin in 5, Pennsylvania in 6, and Boston University in lane 7. So an exciting 7-boat petite final on your way, coming soon. So the 2016 champion was California in the Varsity Challenge Cup. The petite final is coming up next, following that with the grand final and the award ceremony for the lightweight eights as well. All right, so 7 crews getting aligned at the start here, all backed into the starting platform, all locked on, just minor corrections being done by the coxswains, advising their bow seat and 2 seat to kick around. And we have a start 7 boats away for an exciting petite final of the Varsity 8 at the 2017 IRA National Championship. So out in the middle of the race course, it looks like Northeastern and Cornell off to a good quick start, with Syracuse, Dartmouth just trailing them, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Boston University down on the lower half of the screen. So up top, it looks like Dartmouth's out fast, Northeastern with them. So Northeastern and Dartmouth appear to be the 2 leaders in the early part of the race here. So Northeastern and Dartmouth going high and hard off the start. It looks like Yale or Cornell and Wisconsin right in there with them. So looking for a good race here in the petite final of the Varsity 8. So Dartmouth and Northeastern are your leaders right now. Other 5 boats are very closely packed. Wisconsin's being a very nice aggressive start here from the Badgers. I'd say Wisconsin's in the 3rd place position right now, with Penn and BU very close with them, and Syracuse and Cornell packed in there as well. So your leaders, Dartmouth and Northeastern in 2nd, will head out to the launch for the middle 1,000.
It's Dartmouth, the leader for 500 meters by about a third of a length over Northeastern. Northeastern has a lead of about a third of a length over Syracuse and Wisconsin. Then it's another third of a length back to Pennsylvania, Boston University. Looked like Northeastern was putting a little bit of move in on the Dartmouth crew there for a while, but Dartmouth has straightened themselves out. They've still got about a quarter length on Northeastern. Northeastern now feeling a little pressure on their starboard side from Wisconsin, who's moving up into 3rd place. Wisconsin with a couple of seats over Syracuse. Syracuse a couple of seats over Cornell and Pennsylvania and Boston University. Those 3 are pretty much level. Northeastern attacks again. 900 meters into the race, Northeastern attacks and it's successful. Northeastern takes the lead over Dartmouth. It's still Wisconsin and Syracuse pressing hard. They're a half a length behind Northeastern. So Syracuse coming up level with Wisconsin. Northeastern rowing 36, now has about a deck length lead on Dartmouth. Dartmouth at 37. It's Syracuse poking forward. Syracuse a half a length off of Dartmouth and Northeastern. Northeastern with a deck on Dartmouth still, but Dartmouth coming back. Then it's half a length back to Syracuse, couple of seats further back to Wisconsin, then BU a seat behind Wisconsin, Cornell another seat back, and Penn one more seat back. So Northeastern had pushed in front, Dartmouth answering. It's a deck. Northeastern over Dartmouth by a deck. Syracuse in 3rd place, 2/3 of a length behind Northeastern. It's then half a length, no, less than that, a third of a length back to Wisconsin. Wisconsin just ahead of BU is making a nice push here in lane 7. BU just ahead of Cornell. Cornell just ahead of Penn. And with 500 to go, Northeastern begins to extend its lead. They've got 3/4 of a length now on Dartmouth, but it's Syracuse closing.
Okay, a tightly packed bunch, but Northeastern out in the lead. The Huskies taking the lead right now in the middle of the field. The 7-boat petite final with Northeastern in lane 4 on the lead. Dartmouth running in that second position. Syracuse very close behind the green. So it's the orange from Syracuse who just appear to be almost drawing level with Dartmouth right now for that second position. Northeastern clearly holding that lead. But this is what it's all about. Months of training coming down to a few hundred meters with not much separating you from your rival teams. It looks like Northeastern out front is going to be in control. They have a good view of what the orange and the green here in lane 1 and 2 are doing. But Dartmouth is charging. Dartmouth, you can see good quickness, good power coming from the green here in lane 1. Syracuse attacking this piece as well. So Syracuse and Dartmouth really battling, trying to press up into that Dartmouth lead. On the outside there, it's BU and Wisconsin running just behind Syracuse and Dartmouth, and it's looking like Northeastern's taking it to the line. Good power, good rhythm coming from that Northeastern crew. Syracuse in second, Dartmouth third, BU fourth, Wisconsin fifth, and too close to call between Penn and Cornell there. We'll get you those unofficial results and sort that out in just a minute, but that was a fantastic race, a very good showing from Syracuse and Dartmouth pressing, and Northeastern taking control of that race early on. A great race there in the petite final of the men's varsity 8. So we'll be moving to the shore here for the awarding of the medals to the lightweight 8s here. In the lightweight 8s, we had a champion, Cornell. Second place was Pennsylvania, and in bronze position was Yale. Cornell 540.172, Pennsylvania 541.087, and Yale 543.072. So a great close race in that IRA National Championship for the varsity lightweight 8. So in the petite final, we had Northeastern coming away with the win in the petite final. Syracuse in the second position with Dartmouth in third. And we have the unofficial race results. It's Northeastern 536.5, Syracuse 538.5, Dartmouth 539.1, Boston University 539.8, Wisconsin 541.5, Cornell 541.9, and Pennsylvania 542.5. Congratulations to all the teams.
All right. That's it, huh?
And alongside the shore, Cornell's varsity lightweight 8 will be receiving the trophy, the 1922 trophy for the champions in the lightweight varsity 8. So Cornell's varsity lightweight 8, head coach Chris Kerber, assistant coach Bill Brumstead. Congratulations to the Big Red, taking home the championship to Ithaca. And folks, we are just over 5 minutes away for the last race of the day. The grand final of the men's varsity 8, the Varsity Challenge Cup. Harvard in lane 1, Washington in lane 2, Yale in 3, California in 4, Princeton in 5, and Brown in lane 6. On the TV, on the monitor now, you can see Cornell their lightweight varsity 8 receiving their medals from head coach Chris Kerber. Congratulations to Cornell University, winners of the 1922 trophy for the men's varsity lightweight 8. Congratulations, Cornell University. We will be out shortly for the drone view of the start of the Varsity 8 Grand Final. Last year's champions from the University of California are in lane 4. Harvard is in lane 1. Washington, winner of one of the two semifinals, along with Harvard, is in lane 2. Yale in lane 3, who gave Washington a tremendous fight in the semifinals. Princeton in lane 5, and Brown out in lane 6. So all time in the Varsity Challenge Cup, Cornell with the most victories in the Varsity Challenge Cup with 25, Washington having 18, California with 17 all-time wins in the Varsity Challenge Cup. California last year ended Washington's streak of 5 titles. And this Varsity Challenge Cup is a classic trophy, a beautiful piece of metalwork that you can see displayed here near the finish line. It's been awarded to the winner of the Varsity Challenge since 1895, with Columbia as the first winner. So as we fly up to the start, we'll take a look at the lane assignments again and get ready for the final race of the 2017 men's heavyweight season. Okay, so the drone looking down on the race course. So the drone sitting high above the starting platform right now and looking down the race course, a full 2,000 meters ahead of these crews. We are ready for a championship race here. From left to right, it is Harvard in lane 1, Washington in lane 2, Yale in lane 3, California in 4, Princeton in lane 5, and Brown in lane 6. So Washington began the regatta as the number 1 seeded crew. California was your 2nd seed, Yale was the 3rd seed, and Harvard the 4th seed, with Princeton a 5th seed. And Brown, guaranteed to beat their seed here at the 2017 IRA, came in seeded number 8. So the Varsity Challenge Cup will be decided shortly. There is a look in at the bow of the number 5 lane, Princeton, lane 6, Brown. Back up to the drone view. All crews sitting at ease right now, waiting for the call from the starting tower, waiting for the judge referees to call all crews to attention. California there. California beat Washington up at the Montlake Cut earlier in the season, only for Washington to come back and take the Pac-12 championship here at Lake Natoma. And there's your Eastern Sprints champions from Yale University. That's the Washington Huskies there in lane 2. And finally, in lane 1, you could see the Crimson of Harvard University. So we are minutes away from the start of the grand final of the men's varsity 8.
I see him sitting right there.
So perfect conditions here. You can see from our drone view, you can see just a little tiny puff of wind coming across, but the conditions here at Lake Natoma have proven to be fantastic for all 3 days of the regatta. We want to thank the Sacramento State Aquatic Center, Rancho Cordova, and the city of Folsom for hosting this great regatta, and all of the volunteers who helped so hard to put this regatta on, staying all day from the start of racing on Friday morning till we wrap things up this afternoon here at the Aquatic Center. So the crews are now placing their blades in at the catch. Harvard, Washington, California, or Harvard, Washington, Yale, California, Princeton, and Brown. Lanes 1 to 6 from left to right. The flag is up. And we have a start to the grand final of the heavyweight varsity 8. Looking to crown a new champion for 2017 in the Varsity Challenge Cup. So we're going to take a look out. It looks like California doing what they've done all season, from the San Diego Crew Classic all the way to these IRA finals. California with an aggressive, powerful start coming from lane 4. So we'll get the drone side view around. It looks like California nudging their Hudson bow out in front, with Yale running right with them, Washington and Harvard in there as well. Princeton and Brown just slightly back, but if anything, it looks like Yale got their bow out first. Yale ahead of California, Washington running nearly dead level with California. So Washington and California about level with Yale out in front. So an aggressive start from Yale, high and quick, with Harvard right there alongside Washington. So it's Harvard and Washington and California just behind the Bulldogs from Yale. So we've got a very tight race starting off here. Let's go ahead and turn it over to the launch now.
Per stroke. All right. IRA Championship, and at 500 meters, it's Yale getting a little bit of a lead over Harvard and Washington. Yale at 38 has a couple of seats on the Huskies and Washington, who are dead level. Then it's back a third of a length to Princeton, Cal, and back another third of a length to Brown. Yale likes to go out hard, and they're doing it now. Washington at 39, Harvard at 39. So everything checked right there. Now Princeton's making a push. Cal's coming with them to cut back into Washington and Harvard. But right now, Yale has got 3 seats on the field. Yale, long strokes, good run, good swing, has another seat. Half a length for Yale, maybe not quite a half, a third of a length for Yale. Now Washington is taking a seat or 2 off of Harvard. Washington doesn't want to let Yale go. Washington 39, Princeton and Cal kind of come up into the game. Brown out in 6, just a little bit flat. Halfway, it's the Bulldogs. Can they do it this year? 2:43 unofficially. Yale looks very powerful, very strong. Washington is in second. 2 or 3 seats up on Harvard. Princeton's right there with them, knocking on the door. California a seat behind Princeton. Washington 40 now. Washington's having to go to 40 to get back in the hunt. Wow, the Bulldogs look strong. Can they hold on to this lead? 3 or 4 seats. A historic run for Eli if they can hold on. But here comes Washington. Washington is trying to cut back into it. Harvard has dropped back just a little bit. And Princeton is challenging Harvard for third. 600 meters to go. Can Washington wind it up and catch Yale? Or is Yale going to go home with the prize to New Haven? In the semi, Yale pretty well took care of Washington until the end. Let's see what they've got. 500 meters to go. Yale's going up. Can Washington catch them?
Yes, so as Fred said, Yale is really calling the question on Washington. Washington needing to respond. So as we cross that 500-meter mark, Washington lifting the rate, approaching that Yale lead, trying to inch back into it and respond right now. Yale's in that position where they can watch the Huskies, but here comes Washington trying to cut back into that lead. So it's Washington moving on Yale right now. Harvard close behind, with Princeton right in there as well. California dropping back off the lead. Yale is your leader right now. Washington coming and making quite a race of it. It's going to come right down to the line here. Yale is your leader right now. Yale striking hard, going very quick. Nice length right through the catch. Yale with your lead right now. Washington coming up quick here in lane 2. Harvard in lane 1 as well. So it's Yale right now, but Washington, the Huskies closing, Yale holding. It's going to be a very tight finish here as we get to the line. But it is Yale and Washington for 1 and 2. Harvard and Princeton for that 3rd position. Right now it is looking like Yale, but Yale inching ahead. Yale just taking it ahead of the Huskies. Princeton and Harvard in that 3rd, 4th spot. California in 5th, with Brown running in 6th place. So it looks like we will get those results to you, but that was one very close, tight finish, looking like Yale may have just edged it, literally by a bow ball. We will get to that finish and those results shortly, but that was a tremendous sprint by the Huskies and a great effort by Yale to hold them off. We will get you those results as soon as we possibly can. All right, so the crews are all recovering from that all-out effort for 2,000 meters. We'll have to check the official results, but it was looking like Yale ahead of Washington, and Harvard and Princeton very tight for that 3rd place finish. So folks watching online, stay tuned for the awards presentation of the Varsity Challenge Cup. What's that? Lightweight trophy? Okay. So do we have camera to go to the lightweight team trophy? Janet can go that way with it.
Go slowly over and grab the team trophy. Hey, Janet?
Okay, so shortly we'll be showing you the award for the lightweight team trophy coming up next.
Yeah, just nice and easy. Okay, I'm good to go get stuff. You're good to go get stuff. You can pull everything down except you can pull everything down. Yeah.
All right, so on the screen now, you can see the Harvard team getting the lightweight team trophy. Harvard University coming away with the 2017 Lightweight Team Trophy Award for overall. We are still awaiting these unofficial results for the men's varsity 8 grand final. We'll get those to you as soon as we can. Down here at the awards beach, you can see Harvard University winners of the lightweight team trophy for 2017 IRA.
That's a record for us for peak concurrent. 4,300 people watching at the same time. That's actually not bad for us. That's actually really pretty high. So.
All right, and with that scream coming from the Yale contingent here near the tent, you can tell that Yale is coming away with the grand final win in the Varsity Challenge Cup. So congratulations, Yale University. Yale coming in the time of 5:29.900. Washington second in 5:29.969. Harvard in third, 5:33.455. Princeton in fourth, 5:33.78. California in fifth at 5:36.2. And Brown in sixth at 5:36.95. So coming up shortly in the awards area, we'll have the medals presentation for the varsity men's eights. Following that, we will have presentation of the 10A trophy for the overall team champion in men's heavyweight rowing for 2017. And we continue with the awards presentation to the Varsity 8 crews. Bronze medal finish for Harvard University. In silver medal position, the Washington Huskies. And gold medal, Varsity Challenge Cup champions for Yale University.
Probably marching back here with arms full of stuff. Oh, you just sat right here? He's right there. He did exactly what you said. He might not have the inverter though, but gotta go grab it. I'm sure he'll do a second trip maybe. That's my photo. You got it. You know, I mean, it's right. You get the damn close.
Presenting the Varsity Challenge Cup to Yale University, head coach Steve Gladstone, assistant coaches Mike Gennaro and Sam Baum. Congratulations, Yale University. Grant Lewis is your coxswain. Stefan Remkosten is the stroke seat. Sholto Carnegie is 7th seat. Charlie Els is the 6th man. Paul Jaquat is in 5. Nate Goodman 4. Thomas Digby in 3. Jonathan Winter in 2. And Ollie Wynn Griffith is your bow seat. Congratulations, Yale University, your 2017 IRA Varsity Challenge Cup champions. We will be back shortly with results of the 10 Ike Team Points Championship. But right now, let's take a minute to thank everyone who puts on this wonderful regatta. Thank you to the Sacramento State Aquatic Center, California State Parks, the Folsom Chamber of Commerce, Rancho Cordova Travel and Tourism, the U.S. Rowing referees and production crew for putting on this great streaming production of the IRA Regatta, the whole IRA race committee, the local organizing committee, and sponsors of the 2017 IRA Regatta, JL Racing, Row 2K, Rowing News, and Sport Graphics. Thank you again, and we'll be back shortly with a presentation of the 2017 Tenike Trophy. If we could please get all of the University of Washington athletes to the awards area along the beach. All of the University of Washington athletes to the awards area along the beach for presentation of the Tenike trophies. Is that the Tenike? And now on the award speech, the University of Washington Huskies, winners of the 2017 Tenike Trophy. Congratulations, University of Washington.
There, Paul. That is going to the Jumbotron. That's your Jumbotron?
University of Washington head coach Michael Callahan. Assistant coaches Matt Rung, Niles Garrett, Alex Mann, Sam Dahmer, and Sergio Espinoza. Congratulations, University of Washington, on the 2017 Tenike Team Championship.